Okay.
We all have fancy disc brake, low. What is it? They have cassettes now where there's only 2 gears in the front and 7 in the back, but they're larger and they have more teeth. There's more variation between the gears, so there's less gear shifting going on. Who's that?
Jenny Gardner.
Carl, this is Dan.
Hello there, Dan. I'm looking at you.
Curious about Lila.
Oh, she's home.
Good.
I think that was Gary's voice. I think Gary knows a lot more than I do.
Is Gary joining us?
I think so.
Is my sound not working?
There you are. Hooray.
What I do? She came home on Monday.
Yeah.
We saw our primary care yesterday.
Oh.
And then we went and saw a cardiologist in Bend yesterday. So she's scheduled for angiogram on 27th.
His wife? Oh.
That's good news, Gary.
Yes, it was very good news yesterday. So while we're talking, I'm fixing her drugs. I'm a drug man today.
Is that
Don't tell
TMI?
Sheriff Nelson.
Yeah, mute your mic, Gary.
Hi, Sheriff.
Yep. You're rolling.
Morning.
You all recovered now?
Me? Yeah, Roland is recovered. Yes, thank you.
All right.
Oh.
Hi, Shane.
Hey, Dave.
Hi, Shane.
Mary.
Mary's over. Wait a second. Hold on. Hold on. There she is.
Good to see you. All right, back to Dave.
We're doing well.
Good. Like Hollywood Squares. I get to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Shane.
You get the right answers, though.
Hi, Dust. I see both the Dusts have joined.
Hi.
Nice picture. Is that your high school picture?
That's about a 6-year-old picture, but I'll take it.
Be kind and gentle, Dan.
Oh. According to me, your sound is working, Earl.
Well, just get it working after he tells the joke.
Oh, that's the sheriff.
Well, usually Earl starts our meeting, so I guess we're waiting on him. There he is. Earl, can you hear me? Yeah, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. No,
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
now I can't.
Now we hear you.
Yes.
Okay, somebody can hear me. Good. My computer is saying I wasn't being heard. Okay. Good. I'm glad to see everybody here today. And I'm sure that you're glad to see me too.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's get started. It's a little after 12, and we appreciate everybody being here. We'll start with our flag salute. Dave, can you put the flag up? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America,
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good. Dan, could you lead us in a prayer?
I can. Thank you. Father, thank you again for this day, for warmth and sunshine, for the opportunity once again to gather. Thank you for our sheriff. Thank you for the protection and the safety and the services he and his department provide. We look forward to his sharing today. We thank you now for our time together. Bless it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. John, I'm glad to see you're still at the lake. John Duff, I'm glad to see you're at the lake.
I wouldn't leave if I had to. I'd stay there the whole time.
I appreciate everybody being here today. And our guest speaker today is, in fact, Sheriff Shane Nelson. So thank you, Sheriff Nelson, for. We had, I think at the beginning of this whole pandemic thing, we had to cancel, and you were one of the folks we had to cancel out. So we appreciate you coming back. Do we have any other guests? Okay, no one's hiding behind the mics or anything. Okay, good. A couple announcements. Gary, would you like to talk about Flag Day?
I only know what Carl shared on mass mailing. I've been kind of occupied, so I haven't done anything to check into it. I'll try today.
Okay.
So I talked with Randy Marvin this morning, and he's been working with the Povies, and we're on for Sunday at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. And we need as many of you to show up as you can. And we still need a couple of drivers. So if you're willing to drive and tow a trailer, please call Randy Marvin.
Dan, do you know, when they put up the flags last time, there's a limited number, I think. Is that the same thing going to be happening this week?
No, the intent is to put up as many as possible and hopefully all of them.
Okay, good, good. So Flag Day, which is Sunday, the 14th, and 6 o'clock down at the usual West Swab gathering point. Yes. Both to put up, and then at 6 p.m. to take down. So good.
Invite your friends and neighbors.
Yes, get your and all the other folks that you can, hook into it. We'll be glad to have them.
I can spread the word through Key Club if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
And I saw in the chat, somebody asked for Randy's number. I'll get it up and put it in the chat as soon as I find it.
Thank you.
Okay, good, good. Just a note that the June board meeting, which is next Tuesday, will be at the Chamber of Commerce. For those who feel that they can attend in that fashion. If not, I'll have Dave put together a Zoom. So those who wish to stay home but attend the meeting, they can attend by Zoom. I know some folks are hesitant to show up in those kind of forums, and I don't blame them, but we're going to try this and see what happens. Any other announcements? Dan, how did things go last week at Jericho's Road?
It was really good, and thank you, Truman and Hannah, and then Linda also showed up, Linda Walker. Their crowds have been a little smaller than normal, I understand. But still, there were people there on a rainy afternoon, and they seemed like they were enjoying the good food. So it went well.
Good, thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, folks, time for the joke.
Oh, no.
This is because, don't turn off your, this is because we have law enforcement, I guess, maybe, I don't know. But this has to do with the electric chair. Seems like this fellow was having a conversation with a prisoner, awaiting execution by the chair. And so his priest says to him, "Do you have any last requests?" And the prisoner says, "Yes, I do. Can you hold my hand?" Think about that one. Okay. All right, good. Without further ado then, Sheriff, can you give us a few updates on what's been going on? It's just been kind of a slow time for you, I know.
Right. I really appreciate it. First of all, it's great to see everyone on screen. I am saddened that I couldn't see everyone person to person, but I always love seeing friendly, familiar faces and my friends. And I especially love being at a place where I was invited. Not all the time are we invited to some location. This is a good, positive thing. I have some information that I want to share with you, but of course, we have what's been going on in the nation lately. It started off, I think you back it up, it started off with that this was supposed to be the Roaring 20s, if you all remember, and some of the financial experts in the room will be able to speak better about that than I can, but you start off with an expectation and then a global pandemic takes place, and what follows is recommendations and an executive order and just a complete change from normalcy. And then during the rollback of the restrictions, we of course have the horrific event that occurred in Minneapolis. And so I want to give that some time and just touch on that briefly. The first thing that I want to mention about Minneapolis is I don't think there's an individual alive on this earth that doesn't think what that former law enforcement officer did, having his knee on George Floyd's neck, is acceptable. As a matter of fact, I would imagine that everybody condemns that act. And it was difficult for me to watch that video because I've been in this profession for 26 years. And now as your sheriff, I work for you all. And even though what I'm going to speak about today is specific to your sheriff's office, these folks that are out there working hard for you, it really can be connected to the entire profession, of course. And so when you look at these events, I think it's important that I share some of the information for you. First of all, this is my time to listen. You have a lot of different individuals that are giving their input, and you have different organizations, different groups that are giving their input on a situation that, as you all know, has a high level of emotion and even historical references to it. And so since I work for 200,000 people, it's my job to just sit and listen. And with this group today, I'm going to let you know a little bit about what your sheriff's office already does in the realm of some of these reforms or corrective actions that are being taken. And it's just important information that I think my bosses should have. And so I want to start with that. When you look at some of the discussions that are being had as far as the use of, and they're neck restraints, but the term that's been being used is chokehold. Your sheriff's office has not used a neck restraint or chokehold for over 20 years. It is a deadly use of force option. The reason I say it that way is because if a law enforcement officer needs to protect property, or not property, life, and prevent serious physical injury and prevent death, they will utilize deadly use of force if they're justified, and that's based on their training experience and what is occurring at that time. So it's very different from the uses of force that are authorized by policy and state law in the operation of the sheriff's office or the deputy sheriffs going about their general duties. The other thing that I would want you all to know is we have a very specific complaint and investigative system. So whenever we have a complaint come in, we investigate it thoroughly, and then we let the individual that made that complaint know what the outcome is. We also take that information internally and make any policy adjustments that we might need, any training adjustments that we might need, and any type of personnel action that we might need to take. When you take a look at these complaints, I want my bosses to know that the last 3 years, when the state has put a good process in place about bias-based complaints, but for the last 3 years, your sheriff's office has had 0 bias-based complaints. We have always had a bias-based policy, which means it's not allowed, it's illegal. And the fact is we want to hire the right people to do the job for you. And I think that's really what's important. You hire the right people, you retain the right people, you fire the right people, and you promote the right people. And I think that's important for any organization. In this job of public safety, as you can imagine, we're looking for a difficult combination. We're looking for normal people that are going to have to do an abnormal job. And we realize that. And we want to give them the best training and equipment and support in the form of deputy wellness and counseling that we can to keep them healthy as they do the job. I wanted to just briefly take any questions there. And Josh, I am watching the clock. I know I have 25, 30 minutes and I want to leave room for questions, but I want to pause briefly there and just see if any of you have any statements or questions for me. And then I would like to share a presentation with you. And of course, then there'll be questions after.
Any questions?
Right. Oh,
So
yes.
Sheriff, I have a question. In the news reports, I've heard reference to many police departments or police unions have a policy that if an officer is accused of some sort of violation in a deadly force incident, that they cannot be interviewed for some period of time, be it 24 hours or 48 hours. I don't understand the rationale for that policy. Might you have some insight on that?
Sure. The first thing I'll start with is, was that Dan? I'm looking through the Hollywood squares. Yeah. Okay. But the first thing I'll start with is we don't have any kind of agreement that says that. Our deadly uses of force are reviewed by the Tri-County Major Incident Team, which is made up of investigators from Crook, Jefferson, and Deschutes. And then, of course, we have investigators assigned so that we can answer any questions about the procedure or our equipment or anything like that. So we don't have an agreement like that. There is some good factual science behind the reasoning for delaying that interview. But the one thing is just that, look, law enforcement officers are judged by any civilian's standards when it comes to deadly use of force. Those are the factors the DA looks at. So, and also, just because they are law enforcement officers, they also have that right to remain silent. And so really the benefit here is these law enforcement officers agree to talk to these investigators when really one might be able to look at it and say, wow, you shouldn't actually just say anything. You should just let the evidence. And I'm going to tell you that I think those individuals that sign up for this job, they want to help in that investigation. I mean, they want to cooperate and see how it went. But it has to do with stress fatigue. Here we are. We have 12-hour shifts here. We work graveyard shifts. And so that's a lot of the science as to why and someone should wait 24 to, I believe the timeline is 24 to 72 hours. The investigators, what they do is they work with the association lawyer to set up that interview. So that's completed between the law enforcement officer. We don't step in and say, hey, no, you can't interview our teammate. So that's worked out with the investigators and the law enforcement officer. But we ourselves do not have an agreement or a policy for waiting. I do consider that a good practice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Shane, this is Ann Graham.
Hello, Ann.
Hi. Say, you mentioned very carefully no bias complaints, but I wonder, just for information, what about excessive force? Is that different?
Good question. So it is different. So last year, and this is in my presentation, but I'm going to share it now.
Okay.
Last year, your patrol deputy sheriffs had 75,000 enforcement contacts, and that includes community policing contacts, everything we do. In those contacts, they only had 30 complaints last year. That's all complaints. And 40 hands-on uses of force. The reason I share that is, and I'll talk also a little bit about it in the presentation, but the reason I share that is that all stems from hiring the right people and giving them good training and equipment. And I believe, and not only that, it is the community we work for as well. We have a great community here. You look at how everybody followed the recommendations during COVID. And you look at, we've probably had anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 people making their voices heard protesting in the streets in the various communities around the county. And there hasn't been one bit of damage, not one bit of theft, and not one bit of assault. So I think that says quite a bit. And hopefully I answered your question there.
Sure.
Hey, Shane, this is Gary.
Hi, Gary.
Hi.
Sheriff's office teammate. I can't, oh, I see you. Hi, Gary. Well, your name is iPad too, but.
Yeah, I know. Should even say tie on it. This is the fire department, so don't tell anybody though. I believe you guys, I know there's some other agencies use what's called the RAP.
Yes.
Do you know how, this is a tough question, how many people use it, or maybe how many people don't use it? Because the way I've been explained to it, it's like a supersized straitjacket, and you're able to control the person because they can't do anything.
Very good point. We use the RAP. I know Bend Police Department uses the RAP. I'm sure there's others, but we use the RAP within our jail, and we also use the RAP out in the field. It's a very useful tool. And here's the other thing I'm going to say, and look, and I'm just trying to keep it factual and in an emotionally charged situation. But if you watch the video, and I always have to preface this, look, I don't know what kind of relationship law enforcement has with the communities they work for in different parts of the country. I just don't. And I really do know, though, that law enforcement agencies look different in the eastern United States. That's just how it is. And so when you look at some of the elements of, in that video, you always want to see what's the crime. You want to know more of the information. The first thing is there is zero explanation for the use of force, which was both inappropriate and not allowed by that agency. And they made that known. That is not an allowable use of force. But then you also want to question, why didn't his teammates say something? And that's, and that's a question that we need to train on. We're actually training next month. We're having Verbal Judo Institute come in and talk about that. Watch out for your teammates, because everyone's only human, right? Not everybody gets along with everybody. Maybe there's an oil and water combination. You want to be able to step in, and you want to be able to say, hey, so-and-so, I'll take this. You go over here. By the media accounts that I read, in looking at that, they had trouble getting George Floyd into the patrol car. Well, we've had trouble getting people into the patrol car. And that's why, your comment about the RAP, Gary. Okay, let's utilize the RAP. That's a good tool. And then we always want to be careful of positional asphyxiation. But utilize the RAP. Or here's something I tell everyone we do 100% of the time: communication. We talk to people. That's our job. And we train on it. And we believe we're in the customer service business. So communication is a huge part of what we do. But we've had people that don't want to get in the patrol car. And if you spend a while visiting with them and they still don't want to get in the patrol car, well, we are able to position them on the seat. And then you have a partner come across and then grab them either by the belt and then just slide them across the seat. And so I guess, you know, without getting too involved in the specifics, because I do not know all of the specifics, I'm just telling you what the optics of the situation are. And when you work in a job that is, listen, people call us when they don't know who else to call. There is no greater honor in the world than that. And so when we look at that and we look at what are the optics of the situation, and we talk about it, you know, you've heard it, truth doesn't matter, perception's everything. And we need to operate in that realm, and we need to learn from that. So when we look at those things that happen, it all starts with that community relationship and that trust and that foundation. That's the start. And then you make sure you hire the right people. And then, hey, I've always been an open book about our history here. You all know that we've had our personnel challenges in the sheriff's office. And you all know that we have 3 individuals on admin leave right now because I talk about it. Not every government agency talks about it. It happens everywhere in this community, but I talk about it. And the reason I talk about it is because I work for you all. And I feel that my bosses are entitled to that information about who's working for me. And I know you don't want me to share so much information it's going to jeopardize the case, but I do want to share information so you know what your sheriff's office is doing.
Thanks, Shane.
You're welcome, Gary. Was I still
And then
answering questions? I'm sorry.
I thought the same thing you did when I watched the video. What the hell is his buddies doing? They're standing there watching one of them work the crowd back because they were.
Well, and you listen. There were many opportunities there. And I always say, listen to what's going on. Listen to what the individual is telling you. The individual is saying, I can't breathe. I'm having trouble breathing. We need to listen to that. We need to react appropriately to that. You know, I hurt. You hear a couple of statements from the crowd. He can't breathe. I mean, and it's just what occurred there is unacceptable. Watching George Floyd take his last breath after he has had a former cop's knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. You're going to get some of those answers as it plays out. And at the end of the day, it might just be you had a bad law enforcement officer in that force. I'm going to share my screen, please. This is interactive. And I guess I should say I'm going to try and share my screen right now.
Good. Sheriff, you said you have a presentation for us?
Yes, and I will keep in the time. I realize, I think, Josh, do I have about 15 minutes left?
As long as you know.
I would say, yeah, take your time, Shane. I think, I mean, if people need to fall off, they're welcome to, but.
Okay. Yeah. I put this slide up because I just want you to know, look, Sheriff's Office is reactive in growth. And that's because we have 2 tax districts, and anytime we add FTEs, the first thing is I want to make sure it's going to fit in the tax districts. Second, I want to make sure it's going to deliver the service that you expect and you invest in and you deserve. And the third thing that we look at is we don't want to be in a position where we lay good people off. If you lay good people off, it's difficult to get back, especially in a profession like law enforcement. It takes a year before you have a patrol deputy sheriff in a car being of good use to the community. And I don't mean that in a rude way. I just mean there's a lot of training and they have to have some time to get a little bit of experience under their belt. So they go to the academy for 4 months. And before that, they're in our own internal academy for 1 month. And then they are in field training for 5 months. So 10 months they are in training with us. This county's growth. You take look at Redmond. I think the population sign, and I live on the southern end of Redmond, but I think the population sign says 30,000. I might be mistaken. I remember when I was growing up, I was impressed Redmond said 5,000. My dad owned a business there. And so you look at how this county is growing. In the last decade, we went from 157,000 people to now approximately 200,000 people in this county. We get anywhere from 3 to 5 million visitors a year in the Central Oregon area. And, you know, I always throw in there because this was one of the things in the top 10, but 7th in beer location popularity. And I'll take that over popularity in marijuana sales for sure. Our search and rescue, that's one of the mandated services of the sheriff through the ORS. We are one of the busiest, if not the busiest, search and rescue in the state. And transient individuals coming in here for tourism, that population accounts for probably 60% of our rescues. It's a beautiful place. That's why we want to live here. That's why we want to raise our kids here and volunteer here. And that's why people want to come visit here. Thus the 3 to 5 million visitors every year. But last year they went on a total of 572 activities. 128 of them were missions, meaning one every 3 days. And some of these are in the back country, South Sister, that take hours. And so you have an individual that you're trying to package and care for and remove from that setting. But your volunteers in search and rescue, there's about 160 of them. They gave you 33,000 hours last year, which equates to about $1 million worth of investment if we had to pay full-time individuals to do that type of work. The other thing the search and rescue members do is not only do they volunteer their time, and there are some experts in their fields, and my hat's off to them. But not only do they volunteer their time, they have a nonprofit, the Search and Rescue Foundation. They raise money and they buy computers, snowmobiles, ATVs, a little plastic ambu sled that hooks to a snow machine so you can haul a patient out, because they do this bingo night at a local restaurant on Sundays, and they raise this money. And so they buy equipment for the sheriff's office. And sometimes we say, hey, we'll invest in that as well. But the next project they have is they want to raise money for a piston bully, a snowcat that can go anywhere during the winter months. And so that'll, you see on the bottom left picture there, and on the bottom right, we've got our vehicles that are able to go out on some of these snow rescues, but sometimes we can't get everywhere. So we have a lot of different pieces of equipment, and we're prepared to respond anywhere. And these folks are medically trained. The other piece I'll give you is Life Flight and Airlink are great partners to us. Last year they flew 24 missions for us with an investment of several hours, and we're very appreciative of that. Of course, if they get a call for service, they need to go. In our corrections division, last year we had 7,500 inmates booked into your facility. When we opened the doors to our jail in 1994, there was 2,500 inmates booked into that facility. So we've done an expansion there. When you look at the teammates that we try and hire for your sheriff's office, you look in the corrections setting. Last year we had 83 uses of force. Those are hands-on use of force. We expect a higher use of force level in a corrections setting because you are dealing with folks that are sentenced on a crime or alleged to have committed a crime. You're also dealing with an element of a vulnerable population within our community, meaning substance abuse, behavioral health issues, addiction issues. And so when you are dealing with those individuals who have some of those challenges, you're going to have a more disruptive state. We also had an average daily population of 290 with spikes of 318 inmates. We have 360 jail beds here. So you can see we start to get into the realm of talking about capacity, which is one of the reasons we're talking long-term for our public safety campus, 20, 30 years out, just setting a plan. Those that follow us in this profession will be able to fine-tune that plan based on what they're experiencing right now. But something I'm excited about and something that's open right now, we are a partner in the Stabilization Center, which just offers crisis respite. We're going to work to expand those hours. We have behavioral health specialists on staff here in our facility. We partner with behavioral health here and work as a partnership in the field, in the Stabilization Center, in our jail. And we look forward to that increased and tightened partnership. And our community action target team members, which were 2 deputy sheriffs added to a specialized proactive unit, part of their responsibilities will be assisting MCAT and going out and visiting with some of the higher volume users of 911 for the sheriff's office. And we're a little bit different. We see a lot of our high volume in our corrections setting, but out in the field, there are a couple of individuals where we have multiple contacts, but it's not a high number. like the number one number of high contacts or high users is only 10, 8 to 10 for an individual for us. And then I throw in there the sheriff's office, the average inmate meal is about $1.50 per meal. And we work that out with a good contract through Aramark. And yes, it's edible food. I go over and I eat the inmate meals. I eat the inmate meals with the inmate, not all the time, on occasion, but it's something that I do to show them, hey, this is for nutritional value. It's not intended to be delicious. Although, I mean, I didn't mind it. Maybe that says something about my stomach. But. I love to touch on this. This is your work crew working for you. That third picture from the left is Redmond. That's behind, that's near Fred Meyer, south of Fred Meyer by where Just Used Cars used to be. Thomas and Motors, I think, is there. Your sheriff inmate work crew, and right now it's the actual work crew deputies doing the job because of COVID. We have locked down. But 10,000 program hours last year working for our community, out in the community, picking up trash and covering up graffiti, because livability is our job. We want to make sure this stays a nice place for you all to live and run your businesses, and how the community looks is important, because if you leave this stuff, it kind of sends a message that it's okay, and you're going to see more of this stuff. And 140,000 pounds of trash went to the landfill. Patrol division. I mentioned a little bit about 75,000 calls for service. 60% of those are self-initiated activities by your deputy sheriffs. And that's huge. That means they're out there being proactive for you. And our average response time for emergency calls, we were pleased that we broke 10 minutes. We cover 3,000 square miles when you look at the area we serve. And we also are responsible for a rural population of probably around 65 to 70,000. And so just because of our geography, we're going to have a longer response time. And so when we look at our emergency response, yes, we do what we can to get it down. And that is part of looking at the future. But it is, frankly, geography is a huge hurdle to get over when you're looking at a quicker response. I went over some of the numbers with patrol as well as some of the training, and so I'm going to move forward to the next slide. But I'll always entertain any questions. The other thing that I did a couple of years back, and it's zero expense to anything, but we changed the look of our patrol vehicles after just some high-profile stories that talked about police, law enforcement officer impersonation, and then we went to the highly visible black and white. It's the traditional look of a law enforcement vehicle, and that is a visible presence. I wanted people to know that's the sheriff's office. That's a deputy sheriff when it's driving down the road, or if you get pulled over. And I put it on a white background there so you can see it's also very valuable to us in the winter months because the car's easier seen in the snow. That is a large white sticker. I won't share that information widely because I don't want anyone to peel it off and put it on the wall in their bedroom, but it's a large white sticker. When we get ready to recycle that vehicle, we just peel the sticker off and we can auction it off, and it won't look like a law enforcement vehicle when it gets auctioned. This is just some pictures with our patrol division and the benefit of a SWAT team. We have the benefit of two different SWAT teams in this region. The Sheriff's Office SWAT team has the ability to respond to incidents that occur in our jail. We have a specialized environment there. There are no weapons allowed in there, so when you bring weapons in there, we have to be cautious of the accreditation standards that we have, the jail standards that we have, as well as Oregon law, and the types of use of force you can use in a corrections setting. And so we have our own deputy sheriffs assigned to the SWAT team. They come from all three divisions. Deputy sheriffs from detectives, corrections, and patrol make up your SWAT team. They have specialized tools and training. And the benefit of the SWAT team is those individuals that are willing to sign up for a specialized team and train in their own time, is that they take this training experience, these weapons, these tactics to their everyday patrol shifts. So you're able to put together, a mini tactical team that can take care of situations. Those are some of our rescue armors on the bottom left there. Those are both used vehicles. I point them out because the vehicle in the foreground is called a Riva. It's a retired military vehicle. And listen, we get good equipment from our United States military. They're willing to give it to our bosses for free, and we use it. It's just how you use it. That is better than a Dodge Charger if you're going to an armed individual. So if we need to go to your house to save your family members from a barricaded subject who's firing shots, I would rather have an armored rescue vehicle than a patrol car. The one and that rescue vehicle retails for about $250,000. We have about $35,000 invested in that vehicle, and that vehicle will last us 20 more years. We've had it for 10. It'll last us 20 more. The vehicle in the background, it's a former armored truck. So again, it's better than a patrol car. The story in the middle, that was the individual that had stolen one vehicle and then stole a Mission linen truck down in southern Deschutes County. And it was our office and our SWAT team went out there and helped handle that call. The vehicle on the top right, that is an MRAP. That is also a retired military vehicle. We got that for free. We probably have $35,000 invested in that to go to work for you and your sheriff's office. So that's a rescue armor, been very helpful. And then the bottom right, that was a pursuit that ended in Terrebonne. I thank that subdivision for having that river rock there on the left. That's the second vehicle that we've been in a pursuit with that river rock is trapped. It's been very useful. I hope they don't get rid of it. And we used our SWAT team to make that arrest because the gentleman was suicidal. He has an addiction issue, and that was the second call we'd responded to with him. But compressed air is the addiction issue with that gentleman. I think we're still doing well. And these are just some significant events. I know you know a lot of them. We had 2 uses of deadly force that did not result in death recently, or the one was Black Friday there. And then the bottom one in the middle of the screen was the incident down in southern Deschutes County. I do want to talk about a couple of the elephants that are in the room. I mentioned some of our personnel issues that are going right now. We have 2 sergeants that are on administrative leave. We'll let that go through the process, but I will always guarantee you I'm going to do the right thing at the right time, at the right place, for the right reasons, for the very basis of folks make their choices, okay? And we will do what we need to do to take care of business. And I hope I've proved that to you in the last 5 years serving as your sheriff. But the incidents up at the top, those are 2 of our total patrol vehicles. We had 2 high-profile crashes that I thank the Lord were not serious injury crashes. They were injury crashes. And they resulted in a total loss of a total of 5 vehicles. 2 of them were our patrol cars. That really brought to the forefront that even though we train every year and we have a lower crash statistic than some of the neighboring law enforcement agencies compared over in the valley, it wasn't enough. And it drew my attention that we train every year on emergency vehicle operation. But we need to expand our training a little bit just on the normal emergency vehicle operation. And just because you turn on your lights and siren, it does not equal that you need to press the accelerator down. The lights and siren are designed to ease mobility, okay? That is where you save the time in an emergency response. And so we shifted our training. We had immediate training. Both of these deputy sheriffs, by the way, I just want you to know, they went and they paid their tickets. They were cited. Everybody's held accountable to the law. So they were cited, they paid their tickets. They took their lumps, and they're great troops. And so I'm glad they're just moving forward. And we are glad that nobody was seriously hurt. And I settled one case myself. I called the driver and I said, hey, listen, we understand. And that driver was so gracious. She said, you know, we have the tremendous amount of respect for the sheriff's office. And she said, thanks for reaching out and making good on this. But we're also going to up our training in the future. One little thing that I like to mention, it was highly publicized, but I found myself involved in a pursuit a year ago. Look, I'm still a certified law enforcement officer. I'm still going to do my part for public safety. I've been critiqued about that pursuit, and I appreciate the critiques. I even had that pursuit reviewed by 2 other sheriff's offices and taken input from our own office, and I learned a tremendous amount. Hindsight's 20/20 if you look. So I'm going to be going to our emergency vehicle operation course and sharing what I learned and why I should have done things differently and how I would have done them differently. And just for the group here, it's, as you know, my duties are a little bit different now, so I'm not in the field all the time, but some of the things I would have done there, I would have discontinued that when I initially tried to discontinue it. And there were several opportunities I could have discontinued that, but I was hung up on the fact that serving as your sheriff, this was a DUI driver, and I felt that that driver was a danger, when in fact, some of the things I was doing was elevating that. And so it's just a different perspective. It's about, we always want to be better at what we do. And so I learned a tremendous amount. I'm going to pass it on to my teammates. And then of course, bottom right, Copper, our bloodhound. We love our canine program. That bloodhound has done wonderful things. And I've just got a few pictures here, just about what we love to do in the community. You know, ride in the parade, and there's some bike patrol. You have a sergeant building a fire for one of the individuals who's on the call. We put the logos of our schools that we serve as the resource deputies. Deputy day camp there in the middle bottom. It's never too young to start recruiting future deputies of any, you know, anyone. And then far right, I love coming out to community events and 4th of July parade and just seeing my bosses, being out and about, coffee with the sheriffs. There's top left, Laura Connor changing our tires. Look, we're in the customer service business. The best way we deliver that service is we treat people how we want our family members to be treated. Everything is our job. We have total tire change kits in the trunks of our patrol cars. Don't tell Les Schwab. I love to use them as an example for great customer service. But, you know, we do what we would want people to do for our family members. And that's, you know, we bus the Korean War veterans over for honor flight. What an honor to serve those ladies and gentlemen who fought for our country and our freedoms. And because of what they did, allows me to do my job back home, providing public safety to you all. And everyone loves a fireman. That's why we're right there on the left side of the screen fighting that fire in La Pine. I believe here's just some more shots. I'll leave them up there. One of the important things for us as well is the attendance rallies we do, and we're trying to get those into Terrebonne and Tumalo. We do we're invited a lot in southern Deschutes County. We're going to do some in Sisters, but that's just a way to keep that relationship with the students that are coming up. It's a way to have our ears to the ground and hear what's going on in the schools and be able to, you know, intervene before anyone gets hurt if it's possible. Yes, that is 2 dozen donuts there on the bottom left. Everybody loves a donut, and I think that's just a fact of the matter. We do as well. Real briefly, use of force. I want you to know that we train a lot on de-escalation and communication. We learn from uses of force. Each one is reviewed by the immediate supervision and then by command staff and our sheriff's office lawyers. They review these uses of force. They take a look at the tools that were used. Are there better tools that we can bring into the agency that will help us with it? Is there training or policy changes that we need to make? And we take that very seriously. And we also take seriously the optics of situations. At the end of the day, the folks I work with do a terrific job. They are great people. We are going to continue to recruit and hire and retain great people. And we will continue to get rid of those people that aren't in line with the mission and values of the office. They just won't work here. And that's my commitment to you all as your sheriff. It's been an honor to serve you all. I look forward to continuing to serve you all, and I'll take questions. I know I'm over, but I'll take questions.
Any questions, folks?
I have a question, Shane. First of all, Mary and I would like to thank you for the support of the weekend food program for students. You've been a great asset in helping support that program.
You're
Secondly, I was involved for a long time in taking water and propane out to the camps east of Redmond, the homeless camps. And
Yes.
It seems like an insurmountable problem. It seems like a mixture of really good people mixed in with some tweakers and some people that you don't really want to run into it out there. What are your thoughts on managing that, or what are your thoughts going forward on that?
That is a completely separate Rotary Club invite in and of itself. And I'll talk briefly about it, Dave, because you mentioned it. The first thing to do is you can't treat that issue as one issue. It's not one issue. It's like several different issues have been thrown into one bucket. I want to thank you for helping me with that. I had no idea how to do it without losing you all. But when you look at that concern, we need to keep in mind, listen, there are folks that need a hand up, and the weekend meal program, which I love, in the rollaway backpacks, is such a huge help, because you help those that are young, help them learn, help them get a good education, take care and support them so that they can move to the future and into being a productive citizen. That's what everybody wants. So when you look at those individuals, there are individuals that need a hand up. They just need that next step, housing, so that they can work their way into more stable housing. But then you also have an element where folks that, hey, we just want to live off the grid. You know what? It's my right. I want to go camp. And what I say to that is, look, we all have to follow the rules, okay? There are rules around how you get rid of your human waste. There are rules around how you dispose of your litter and your trash. And so anybody can live off the grid they want. They have to follow the rules. The third group are those that are addicted to substances, or those that have mental health issues, behavioral health issues, mental wellness issues. Those folks need that hand up. They need that assistance. We want to try and do a warm handoff, get them to some of those resources. Stabilization Center will be a great place to have a warm handoff to more in-depth services. But you also, do you know what? I want to start a program. It's called the Angel Program, where anybody can bring their illegal drugs to me and I'll drive them to treatment. I can't start it because there's not enough treatment beds. And I saw Michelle Duff on, I don't know if she had to get off, but there's not enough treatment beds that I can send people to. And I don't want to start a program and then say, I have no treatment beds to take you to. So that's my next thing I'm looking at, trying to get that over here. And we invest in proactive resources. So we invest in the Stabilization Center. We invest in a lot of things where people say, well, is that law enforcement's job? And I say, everything's our job. I mean, livability is our job. We are a member of the community. It's our job to put ourselves out of business. So therefore, you bet we'll invest in everything, not Rolls Royces. I don't want to worry everybody. But you look at some of those things that help. Then you also have a criminal element out there, Dave. You mentioned it. You've got people with drug use, and maybe that leaks into the addiction issues and the behavioral health issues as well. But you've got people that have drug use. You've got people that are victimizing neighbors, trespassing, leaving human waste on their property, needles. And we want to respect everyone's rights here. So you have to divvy it up into the separate issues that surround that. And I can tell you, at the end of the day, it is going to take a community solution. But this Veterans Village they want to put over here by 911, that can be a good option as far as helping our veterans and helping them transition in Central Oregon Veterans Outreach, Jericho Road, some of those great nonprofits. The other thing about looking at some of that issue is we call families. If we visit with an individual, we call their family and say, hey, is there a support structure waiting in Missouri or Alaska or whatever? We'll pay for a bus ticket, we'll pay for a plane ticket, but only if they have a receiving, supporting family on the other end. we will help people to get where their resources are, because some folks have come here with the promise of work or whatever, and then end up being stranded. So we help make that connection because it's the right thing to do, and it's a good thing to do for public safety.
That's great. Thank you. I didn't realize that was an option that was available at times, but thank you for your answer. Appreciate it.
As a matter of fact, my wife, who works for Bend Police Department, they paid for a gentleman's plane ticket to fly back to his sister and his daughter in Alaska.
Sheriff, we'd like to really thank you for sharing your time with us today. And I know there's folks who have lots of questions, and you can. We want you to come back.
Thanks, Earl. And everyone, I work for you. You call me anytime.
Thank you very much. And thanks to all the folks for showing up today. And remember, we have a board meeting on Tuesday. And if you want to come by Zoom, Dave is going to be putting out a Zoom number for you. And if you want to come in person, come on down, but make sure you bring your mask and you're going to be sitting 6 feet away, okay?
Thanks, Earl. Hey, Alan, when did you sneak in?
Well, Alan's been sleeping on his desk all day.
Doing a great job.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.